Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Kush,
I'm Alex.
And I'm Cam.
and today we're reviewing Japandroids, Near to the Wild Heart of Life. So Japandroids are an alt-rock group. This is their third album, and they received critical acclaim in the last two. A Canadian artist, which we don't get much of. Well, I guess we get some, but not way too much. So it's quite interesting what they did with this album. So this album, it was a solid alt-rock record. I think they have a lot going for them. I feel like their past... So I'm a big Japandroids fan. The last two I really loved. But I felt like this one was a bit too restrained in terms of noise. I think in compared to the last two, I think they had a lot more experimentation, a lot more unique sounds. And I felt like this one was more of a radio-friendly sound. I mean, there are some songs which definitely have a unique sound to them, but I think overall there's a lot more radio-friendly songs compared to what they did in the previous records.
I feel like we're getting a lot of like happy medium compromised sound albums doing this show, and a lot of these bands are bands that I've heard of but never actually listened to, and for some reason I actually think in a lot of cases I'm like the perfect target audience they want with some of these albums. Like this one, it's the first time I've heard it, and I mean, like you say, it's probably more radio friendly, probably get on a few rock stations, but really, I mean, I just love this album. It's rare that I really get excited listening to an album, but I felt that with this one. I mean, I still thought there was a lot of heavy guitar distortion and feedback manipulation on a few of these songs that really worked, because that's something that could really go badly wrong. Like, if this wasn't mixed or produced very well, this could sound like complete rubbish. It could sound really bad, but they have it mixed so that it still sounds kind of easy behind the guitar feedback, but it still sounds really good. And for that sound just gets me really excited. And yeah, I love this album.
I really liked it too. I have mostly all of their material so far, the two previous albums and then the no singles comp. And I agree that this definitely sounds more, quote unquote, radio friendly. But at the same time, I also feel like it's kind of the direction that they needed to go in, because I remember their first two albums. I haven't heard them all the way through in a while, but I remember them both like sounding pretty similar to each other, and not just like, how a band might sound similar one album to the next, especially early on. But it's just like, for me, the two songs that stand out the most from either of those albums and that really kind of inform my current opinion of them are The Boys Are Leaving Town, which was the opening track from Post Nothing, and Adrenaline Night Shift from Celebration Rock. And those were both like, I just think of those and I remember them like fast drums, distorted guitars, and also I don't know if this is the correct term, but like close mic'd vocals, which is especially in The Boys Are Leaving Town, where it's just like it sounds like you're getting a lot of mic distortion just from them singing so close without like pop filters or something like that. And everything on this album was much catchier than anything else that I remember from the first two, and that's helped by the fact that they use a lot more like synth flourishes. Like, I mean, it's not like full on synth pop or anything, but there's definitely moments where they just bring it out for accent, not necessarily atmosphere, but just to help create a different sound, and it really worked for them. And I was saying to Alex before we started recording that let's see if I can find what I said. Oh yeah, it felt like they could be mistaken for a four-piece, but it's still just the same two guys that they've always been, and that to me was kind of an incredible shift. Like, I was looking forward to this album, but I didn't really know how much because of how samey the first two struck me as, and this was I felt like it was a really good step forward.
So yeah, so from the track listing, I think there's only like 8 songs on here. So the very first song, the opening track, Near to the Wild of Life, that song had a lot of, I think, Green Day influence, like a lot of like pop punk influence or punk rock sort of sounds.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
It was interesting. It was fun lyrics and they had great drumming, but it was just kind of generic, more radio friendly music. But the one thing I noticed in that song, damn, is the vocalist like really good. I really enjoyed his not raspy sound, but like maybe just unfiltered sound, and it sounded really nice overall.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It keeps a like energetic and punky edge to it for like the whole 5 minutes, basically. And if a band could do that for 5 minutes, keep
It's
a punk,
very
energetic edge. Yeah.
But I think my favorite song was No Known Drink or Drug. I think because they had like the spoken word instrumental or spoken word intro, and they had like the choir like really quiet in the back, and it had very subtle chord progressions and the drumming, and I think everything just flowed really well together. And the lyrics were probably the best on the album. They had really vivid descriptions of love. One of the lines I wrote down was it's a red Emma romance in the summer heat, and it just gave like just amazing imagery for most of the song, and I think it was very unique, very different, and I think this is the thing that I really wanted this album to be. But it just, despite being still a good album, it was a bit just missed on some parts.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that, but then again, it is my first time listening to this, so I don't know how much my thoughts really count for this in particular. One song I found really interesting was the one that a lot of people don't seem to like that much, which is I'm Sorry for Not Finding You Sooner. I just think this is really cool. It reminds me of REM's Let Me In, which is like, yeah, there's a whole band playing, but it's basically Michael Stipe and a lot of guitar feedback, and it's basically the two main elements at play. And yeah, this is just a different type of song, having the cool guitar feedback and it not being that heavy, but still it's kind of like a drone thing in a way, although not really. And I don't know, it's just really, I like that it was like heavy but kind of quiet at the same time. And I don't know, I just really thought it was really good. Like, it kind of reminded me of a post-hardcore song, only lyrically. I don't know why, but that genre seems to have a lot of romantic, powerful lyricism a lot of the time, and it had like lines like I've been looking for you my whole life, I'm sorry for not finding you sooner. You get a lot of romantic type lyrics in music, but this band on this song and No Known Drink or Drug, they really bring it across authentically and make it seem real to me. So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting song.
Yeah, I think their main points of comparison, the main people that reviewers and fans will point to and say these are what they're trying to be like, is just like, I think the common thing is just a punk and Springsteen, which is why you get some of the titles like, you know, Near to the Wild Heart of Life is just kind of like trying to invoke the Americana imagery. Maybe not necessarily well, but I mean, to prove the Springsteen influence is there, you don't need to look any farther than the title of one of their older songs, Darkness on the Edge of Gastown, which I kind of, there's some other band who, like, you feel like it kind of sounds like it would be a parody of a Springsteen song, but you know, that's just the kind of thing that they do. They just put their own little twist on it and write the songs their own way, and just you know, it's all in like homage and respect to their influences. But anyway, my favorite on the album was actually the relatively epically lengthed Arc of Bar at a whopping like 7:30. I just love the bit in the intro. I don't know if it's synth or like just uniquely distorted guitar line. Just this great little riff that just opens it really well, carries the intro for good little bit, and then I think it like comes back in and out through the song like any good hook should, and it just sustained itself incredibly well for a band who usually does these like, 3.5 to 5 minute energetic bursts. And I just saw that and I'm just like, well, I think they've done similar long songs before. I don't know if they can pull off 7.5 minutes, but they did beautifully. It's just a testament to just their love of the craft and just how good they are.
I feel like the choir at the end also helped get the 7 minutes across.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's the choir,
Like,
the backing singers.
Gang vocals and that sort of thing.
It gave it a nice anthemic vibe, I don't know.
I think.
Yeah, and I do love the electronic flourishings on this song. I don't know if they are electronic, but yeah.
Yeah, I think my only problem with that song was that, given that it's so long and there wasn't much of a build up to anything, like it kept the same tone throughout the entire song, which I was kind of disappointed. There was no difference in tone, but it was still a really good song, and the lyrics were really well crafted. Besides that, there was a couple other songs. I think in a Body Like a Grave was a pretty decent song. It's kind of edgy, the lyrics, but it worked for them. It was a decent closing song, and I think that'd be a really good concert anthem, especially that last song with the In a Body Like a Grave.
I know we talked about it earlier, but I really loved No Known Drink or Drug, basically for the same reasons as you, Kush.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
It's a good choice for lead single, and it's like, I mean, like I said earlier, you get so many romantic love songs that this one just feels real. He feels like he is like a guy who has tried a lot of drinks and drugs in a way, and like love is the only thing that feels real to him in a way. I don't know what it is about it, but I think the drums are really played like distinctly well on this song, and I mean, I've only heard it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I don't want to make any great claims, but I actually think this is one of my favourite like rock songs, like just kind of rock, not metal or I don't know, pop rock. Just because you could just call this kind of rock in a way, even though it's definitely got noise and noise rock and other, like you said, heartland rock influences. I think this is one of my favourite songs of the 2010s for rock. I don't know what it is, maybe it's because it's like the most snappy song on here, the most catchy maybe, but I just really loved it, and I don't know, it sounds like a classic sort of song to me. I have no idea why.
Yeah, overall, I was really impressed by this album. I mean, I kind of missed their old sound, the more noise rock kind of sound, but this is a good album. I can't really complain.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like the change just shows that they understand that being too limited in your sound isn't very good. Like, I was kind of worried the fact that this has been a 5-year gap between albums, and I was worried that maybe they've just decided that Japandroids has run its course, and they can't really do anything else under that banner. But I feel like that they showed that they have a really strong future if they want to keep going with it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they keep bringing in the kind of catchy pop structured choruses, like some of these songs reminded me of Tom Petty a bit. I don't know, maybe that's like the heartland rock kind of thing. Like some of these songs had acoustic guitars that reminded me of it. But as long as they keep varying their sound a bit, I can't see much of a bad future for them. They should do okay.
Yeah. What would you rate it, Alex?
I'm going to be extremely generous with this, and bear in mind I had listened to one of my least favourite albums ever before this, so it might be slightly inflated, but I'm going to give this an 8.5. I really loved the sound of this album. The whole guitar feedback layers that could sound really bad if they were produced badly, but just sound so good and so cathartic in some songs, that this album just really clicked with me. It's the sort of thing I'd put in the background and just let it sink in just some more. I mean, I'm definitely going to check out their other 2 albums. Yeah, 8.5, really loved it.
How about you, Cam?
I'm gonna give it an 8. Like I said, it's just great to have them back. It's great that they've been able to change up their sound so effectively, and this is definitely going to be something I'm gonna spin a lot while I look forward to hearing the next one whenever it comes out.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little more conservative. My rating, I think, is a 6.5 for me. I felt like every song had a good aspect to it, but I feel like they kind of compromised their sound. Maybe I'm just being like the old grumpy fan, but I feel like I prefer their old sound more to this. Even though it's still a good sound, I just think I've heard a lot of I've heard this done many times before, and I feel like I've kind of missed their uniqueness ahead with the noisy guitars and the aggressive drums that they used to have. But still a good album. Still a couple songs that I really liked on here. So it's a plus in my book. And if that's it, then thanks for tuning in to Busted Speakers. If you like what you saw, then make sure you hit the like and subscribe to this channel. Check us out on social media and let us know what you think about this album in the comments below.